What's up, everyone? This video is going to be on the real problem with marriage, why no one wants to get married and why no one should want to get married. And what I'm going to be sharing in this video is going to be very countercultural and very counterintuitive. A lot of unpopular opinions are going to be shared in this video. Things that you're not going to hear anywhere else. At least I know I've never heard anywhere else. Because I come from the perspective that marriage is always bad. There is no such thing as a good marriage. I also come from the perspective that dating is bad. There is no good dating. Okay, dating and marriage are not good. They feel broken because they fundamentally are broken. That's why they feel broken. So in today's video, I'm going to lay out the case for why this is, and hopefully this will help at least someone out there avoid these pitfalls, avoid these dangers, and avoid dating and marriage altogether. And then I'm also going to maybe propose some better solutions. So, I don't know if you noticed this before, but if you look around the world, look at all the other animals, and we are animals. If you look at all the other animals, you're going to find something very odd, very strange. And that is, no other animal gets married. There's no marriage in the animal kingdom. And, in fact, no other animal dates. Okay? We're the only ones who do these activities. So what does that tell you? That tells you that there is a fundamental mismatch in these concepts to what we perceive the world as the world should operate. See, we've been told our whole lives through music, movies, television shows, poems, books, and even oral tradition passed down from our parents, their parents, and so forth for thousands of years, millennia, that there is a good and proper way to conduct human romantic relationships. Okay, and we'll call this the standard narrative for romantic relationships. So the standard narrative for romantic human relationships is you're supposed to start single, and when you're a single person, you should feel a sense of loss. You should feel a sense of missing out. You should feel a sense that you are not complete. All right. So this is step one. All right. This is a critical first step, because if you don't experience this, then you won't participate in the standard narrative. Right. So the world is pressuring you to feel these feelings of inadequacy as a quote-unquote single person, which we'll dive into the fallacy of the single person in a moment. But that's the first step. And then the second tier is you're supposed to start dating. Okay, dating is this process in which you're becoming and looking for the perfect person that you can spend the rest of your life with, romantically and sexually. Then you're supposed to get engaged, and then you're supposed to get married. And the standard narrative sets marriage as the pinnacle or the top of the mountaintop for all romantic relationships. This is like supposed to be the height of romantic relationships. I'm here to tell you, marriage is not the height of romantic relationships. It's the abyss. It's the lowest point that you could imagine for a human romantic relationship. And I'll dive into exactly why in this video and help hopefully shed some light on why we feel this way and why this is true. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about this idea of being inadequate as a single person. Your whole life you're going to be told that single people are not as happy as married people. They are missing something. They are broken. They should be sad, and people feel bad for people who are single. Okay, people will they say things like, When are you going to get a girl? When are you going to get a guy? When are you going to get married? These types of things, right? Mainly because misery loves company, okay? Guys, married men are miserable. They're miserable because they are prisoners, all right? This is the reality of being married. So, what a lot of times will happen is people will try to basically drag you into their misery, right? And so they do this through a myriad of ways. One is through, a big one is through shame, right? Married people look at single people with rose-tinted glasses. Married people actually envy single people, believe it or not. And I know this is going to be odd for some people to understand this, but it's true. See, when you are a single person, you're free. You're free to come and go as you please, to go where you want, to do whatever you want to do. There's no one there checking you. There's no one there watching every move you make. When you're married, guys, you have to consider someone else for everything. Not just what you do or what you say or what you wear or how you do things, but also your own thoughts. You're constantly having to justify yourself to another person when you're in what I call a contractually obligatory romantic relationship. Guys, this is a prison sentence, is what this is. And your wife is the warden of the prison, empowered by the state, which we'll dive into a little bit more of that in a moment. So what happens is society is going to want to try to pressure you in all directions to try to get you to follow the standard narrative, right? Because the standard narrative is required for our civilizations. Our civilizations are built on this standard narrative. And if you don't comply, then it causes problems for all the other systems. Because the truth about the standard narrative of human romantic relationships is that it's about one thing, and that is control. That's what it's always been about. That's what it'll always be about. This is why marriage is not only not good now, but it has never been good. And it will never be good because of its fundamentally flawed nature. And what happens is that in a systematic method, society is going to push you to feel uncomfortable when you're single. Now, I want to dispel a couple of myths about being single, because this is important to understand if you're going to try to step out of the standard narrative. The first thing I want to talk about being single is that you're never single. This idea that you're single is a misnomer. It's a falsity. You're never single. You've never been single. In fact, you are not a single person anyways. The idea that you are a single person is an illusion. It's not real, right? You are not a single organism. You are a community of organisms. Your body is comprised of several hundred trillion individual living organisms that make up what feels like a single organism, but you're not. You are a community of cells, okay, on a fundamental level, right? And for an average adult, about 20 pounds of you is going to be even non-human organisms like viruses and bacteria that rely on you to survive, or your body to survive, and your body relies on them to survive. So there is no you. You are never single. You're never alone. And on an even more fundamental level, you are not. There is no separation between you and nature and you and everyone else. That's all illusionary. We exist in a We exist in time and space made up of matter, of atoms and electrons and all these other fundamental particles that are indistinguishable from everything else. Yes, there feels like there's space between me and this camera, and there feels like there's space around in this car, right? It can feel empty, but if you think about it on a fundamental level, there is no difference. Air is like water, okay? It has the same properties as water. We are essentially in an ocean of particles, and we are just some of those particles organized in a certain shape within this nebula. Okay, so we are, I think Carl Sagan said it best when he said, we are the universe. Consciousness is the universe experiencing itself. We are the universe experiencing itself. So this idea that you're single is a misnomer. You're never single. And you always have people around you, right? You notice throughout your day there's people coming here and there. You talk to people, you interact with people. Guys, this is life, right? So yes, some people are going to be closer to us for certain amounts of time. Some people are not. But life is like a journey. Okay, you are on this epic journey and quest, right? You're on this you're the main character in your game, and you're on this epic journey traveling through the world. If you think about it in those terms, think about how far you've traveled, right? Sometimes you stay somewhere for an extended period of time. It might be while you're sleeping at night for 8 hours, or it might be you're working at a desk, or you're working at a coffee shop, or you're traveling on a road like I am. This is all part of the journey. And along the journey, sometimes you do bump into people and you spend time together on this journey you call life. But then they will eventually go off and do something else, and so will you. You may come back together, you may not, right? This is what it means to be alive. There's another saying that says the only person that you have to spend the rest of your life with is yourself. You're the only person. Everyone else, your friends, your lovers, your parents, your siblings, and yes, even your romantic partners, even if you do get married, everyone else in your life is temporary, right? Every relationship is temporary. This is true for even people who have quote unquote been married their whole lives. You know, they met somebody in high school, they got married, and you know, they're that classic story of the old couple who dies in each other's arms. Even those relationships are temporary, right? Because the majority of their life didn't even spend together. They were working, they were doing things. They were apart for most of their lives. And yes, there was times where they came together and were together, right? But every relationship is going to be temporary. So this idea that marriage is somehow different is simply a misnomer, right? And the idea that you're single is also a misnomer. You're not single. You're not alone. You never have been. You never will be alone. You're always connected to the world around you. And what happens in this stage of singledom from the standard narrative is it creates a false perception that you are alone, that you're broken, that you're incomplete. You must find this other person who's going to be with you forever. And this is also silly on its face, because if you think about some of the most amazing people who have ever lived, right? A lot of them were single, quote unquote. A lot of them didn't have a romantic partner, but they were able to do things and change the world and impact the world in incredible ways that maybe have saved thousands, if not millions, of people's lives, right? And done tremendous works. Are we to say those people don't have as much meaning and purpose in their life as a person who has done none of those things and just happened to get married No, this is a silly notion, but it's one that we buy into, hook, line, and sinker. And it's important to dispel this myth because it's not true, right? Not having a romantic partner says nothing about you, but despite this fact, people have a negative outlook on people who are not in romantic relationships, who are not dating or engaged or married. So much so that they're less trustworthy. They have less opportunities for advancement in their careers, right? People who are married are viewed as more stable. They are viewed as more, as a better person, right? They have more opportunities in this world through social interaction, through jobs and careers. So this is the critical point of the standard narrative, is to make you feel insecure, make you feel sad, make you feel depressed because you don't have a romantic partner. And guys, I'm here to tell you it's further from the truth. Now, I'm someone who has spent a lot of time in relationships. I've always been in relationships my entire life. I've been in and out of relationships. Some short, some very long. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't solve any problems, okay? Being in a relationship, being in a contractually obligatory romantic relationship with another person only adds problems to your life, especially as a man. As a man, a contractually obligatory romantic relationship only comes with two things. There's only two things you get, all right? And that is risk and responsibility. Those are the two things you get from a contractually obligatory romantic relationship. And neither of those are pleasant. Risk and responsibility, okay? You've got another person now who is, the thing is guys, we're all going to die, all right? I hate to tell you this, right? This is pretty much reality. I mean, maybe one day there will be people who won't die, but at the end of the day, there is going to probably be the heat death of the universe, which will, even if somebody figures out a way to defeat biological death, there's still... It seems there's still going to be an end for all of us, right? So in other words, life is fundamentally suffering. That is what life is. Life is guaranteed suffering. You're guaranteed to have more suffering than you are to have non-suffering by definition, right? Because if everyone dies, that's the ultimate suffering. And that undoes any positive experiences you may have throughout your life. So when you take on a contractually obligatory romantic relationship with another person, you are taking on their suffering, right? Best case scenario, you find an amazing person who you get along with for the rest of your life, and like you guys have perfect chemistry and everything. And best case scenario, one of you has to watch the other person die, right? That's the best case scenario. And I know that's a little grim, but it's important to put it out there for what we're going to be discussing now. Because the next stage of the standard narrative for human romantic relationships is now you're supposed to start dating. Now, in the dating process, you're supposed to work on yourself, become the best version of yourself, and you're supposed to create this ideal checklist of everything you want in another person. All right, and then your goal is to find another person that checks off all your boxes and that you check off all their boxes, if not all, most. And guys, I'm here to tell you this is disguised as this is disguised as being about love and about honor and all this kind of stuff. It's not. It's completely shallow. Okay, your checkbox list is completely shallow if you go down it. Oh, she or he has to look good. They have to have money. They have to have this. They have to like these hobbies. They have to have, you can get as granular as you want to in this list, but it's all shallow, right? Because what happens when that person no longer checks those boxes, right? We're told that marriage is this eternal principle. It's forever, that it somehow secures this relationship. It doesn't, because as soon as things change to a certain degree, all of a sudden feelings begin to change. Next thing you know, it's divorce. And by the way, the majority, basically all marriages end in divorce for the most part. We'll get into that in a moment. But then you're supposed to be dating, right, and finding this checklist. And even if you happen to find someone who you check off all the boxes on, they check off all the boxes on you when you meet, well, guess what? You're going to find out the reality very soon. Because the reality of humans is that we're not the same today as we are tomorrow. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, right? The only thing in this universe, in this reality, that doesn't change is that everything changes, okay? People change over time, right? So you may be a person who likes roller coasters, likes horror movies, likes whatever it is, Seinfeld, or whatever it is you happen to be into today. But in 5 years, you're both going to change. And you and or that person may not even be the same person they were when y'all met. Right? So the whole point of the checklist is mute on face value, because the checklist doesn't matter, because people change over time. And one of the chief problems with any contractually obligatory romantic relationship, like marriage being the worst, is that it is a rigid, fixed structure, right? It has these rigid, fixed structures, and it's set up with certain parameters in mind. But what happens over time as people change, the infrastructure cannot handle the change. It's like a building that has no tolerance for change in the foundation, like with earthquakes or minor changes in ground levels. The building will collapse because it's too rigid, doesn't have structural integrity that can handle that. And that is what marriage is. Okay? And yeah, so this dating period is just completely shallow. It's really sad to see it. You hear guys, oh, she's a 9, she's a 10. Okay, cool. But what happens if she gets into an accident and her face becomes deformed, her body gets mutilated from an accident, or her mind gets destroyed from some type of event that occurs, and she's no longer that same person that she was before? Well, because the standard narrative creates these rigid structures, then what ends up happening is we end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? We're forced between staying with this person or leaving them, right? There is no middle ground. There's no way to find a middle ground. There's no way to continue to have this person in your life, but not in certain ways, right? This is considered bad. It's considered ugly, right? And the way we get to this is because of the next steps. Once you're dating, you find somebody you really like, you begin to enter into your first levels of your contractual obligations. And this is where things really go bad. I call them contractually obligatory romantic relationships because that's precisely what they are. They are romantic relationships constructed together with contractual terms. See, the entire standard narrative of romantic relationships is built on not love, not desire, and not affection as they are proposed. Instead, what they're built on is business. It's built on duty, responsibility, and obligation. And this is the Achilles heel of contractually obligatory romantic relationships. Why is that? Well, let's think about like an example. Let's say you have a friend and you and this friend are hanging out and you're having a great time. You guys spend time together, you go on trips, all kinds of fun stuff. And you really like being around each other. You just get along. You find yourself always going out for coffee, going out for lunch, you got a big friend circle, you guys are having a great time. And then one day your friend turns to you and slips you a contract and says, hey, if you want to continue being friends with me, you have to sign this contract. And this contract, and you look at the contract, you pick up this contract, you're looking at it, and it's like got things like you're not allowed to hang out with other friends, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. If you break any of these rules, then the friendship is over, and I get half your stuff. Now I want you to think about that for a moment and let that sink in. How would that make you feel? How would that change the dynamics of your friendship? At the very least, that would be incredibly awkward, right? And it's going to negatively affect your friendship. How can you be friends with somebody like that? Like, that's just strange, right? That's weird. But yet, we hold this motto up as the height of romantic relationships. It doesn't make any sense. This is the same way of like when you were in school. Remember, there was always this kid who would go around and be like, hey, I'm not going to be your friend anymore unless you give me that cookie off your lunch tray. Or I'm not going to be your friend anymore unless you give me that toy. Right? We know deep down inside what's wrong with this. Most of us recognize that for what it is, which is this is not a friend at all. Right? A friend wouldn't say that to you. A friend wouldn't imply that to you. We know that even if you gave them that cookie or that toy, they still wouldn't be your friends. Right? Not a true friend. Why? Because you can't buy friendship. And in the same way, you can't buy love, desire, and affection. Right? Think about this. Can a man purchase true love, desire, and affection from a prostitute or a stripper? Can he actually buy that? The answer is no. He may be able to buy the illusion of those things, but he'll never be able to actually buy true love, desire, and affection. Why? Because true love, desire, and affection can only be given freely and received freely. You can only get those freely. If you buy them, if you try to buy them, guess what? They become stains. They become stained. Why? Because you introduce new concepts into the relationship. It's duty, obligation, responsibility. Okay? These three elements corrode what you really want. Love, desire, and affection. Right? That's what happens. Over time, and it can be quickly or it can take time, duty, obligation, and responsibility corrode away the true love, desire, and affection that you crave. And why do we do this? Well, we do this because it's sort of human nature, right? You find something you like and you want to lock it in. You want to keep it. You want to make sure it never goes away, right? And we do this with all sorts of things. And there are several fundamental problems with this logic. First of all, nothing remains the same. Everything changes. You find a car you like, you lock it in and make it yours. Guess what? It breaks down over time. All of a sudden, there's another car that's even nicer, you know. But we try to lock it in. I think of myself as a kid. Went to a camp, and I remember there were these fireflies. And so me and my friends started grabbing them, put them in a jar, sealed up the jar real tight so they couldn't get out. Took them back to the camp room, and we had a jar full of fireflies that were lighting up the room a little bit. It's kind of cool. Unfortunately, because they couldn't get any air in there, they all died very quickly. And this is what happens to our romantic relationships. We find someone we really like, we try to capture that energy, and lock it in, and in the process of doing so, we kill it. See, what we all really want deep down inside is not somebody who has to be with us or has to do certain things for us. What we all really want is to be sitting across from or next to somebody who's there with us just because they want to be there. They're having fun, right? They don't have to be there. There's no obligation. See, obligation, duty, and responsibility kill genuine love, desire, and affection. Let me give you an example of this. Imagine you're a guy dating a girl, and you guys have been together for a while, okay? And you're both very happy. You're in love. You've got all those really good feelings, the oxytocin, and all this other kind of stuff going through your blood, and you're excited to be with them, and they're happy to be with you, and you guys have a great relationship. And one day you decide you're going to send your girl a single rose to her workplace with a little note that just says, "Hey, I was thinking about you today. I hope you have a great day." Something very simple, right? I'm going to tell you right now, and by the way, guys, if you do this for a woman that you're in a healthy relationship with, it's going to mean the world to her. Her girlfriends at work, at the hair salon, and the workplace, wherever she happens to be at for work, her girlfriends at work are going to be so jealous. They're going to be like, "Man, look what this guy did. This guy is amazing." It's going to be a thing, right? They're going to go home. They're going to be jealous about the situation. Why didn't you, talking to their man, why don't you do stuff like that for me? This is the kind of stuff that happens, like, for real. Like, that could mean so much to a woman to receive something like that from a woman a man who she loves. Now, take that very same rose and that very same card, and let's change the date. Instead of just being a random day, let's place it on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And fellas, on Valentine's Day, every year, you gotta pick it up. You gotta do better than the previous year. You can't do worse. You can't do the same. You gotta step it up every year on Valentine's Day, right? Here's that duty, obligation, and responsibility seeping in as an example. And all of a sudden, on Valentine's Day, that single rose and that little card doesn't mean as much, right? Because your girl's friends over there at work, they're getting bouquets of flowers sent to them. They're getting teddy bears, and they're getting singograms and all kinds of other stuff. They're getting cars delivered to their workplace with the red bow tie on it, with a big sign that says, "I love you, baby." And all of a sudden, that little rose that on any other day would have meant the world to her doesn't have the same effect, does it? Right? It's somehow less now. Same rose, same card, with diminished effect. This is kind of like the law of returning. I can't remember what the law is, but I'll remember in a moment. But the law of diminishing returns. Another way you can experience this is think about like Christmas. Okay? On any day of the year, a single wrapped present for someone could mean the world to them. A single, just simple little present, something that shows you were thinking of them. But on Christmas, when you're surrounded by gifts, all of a sudden a single present doesn't really mean that much anymore. You see kids, oh, are there any more presents here? Are there any more presents for me? And they got a stack of unwrapped gifts right behind them, right? This is how duty, obligation, and responsibility destroy true, genuine love, desire, and affection. Because on Christmas, you're expected to give gifts. It's expected. And this ruins the authentic experience. And these are ways that society stains real, true, genuine relationships over time. And so as you're engaged, you're dating, you're getting engaged, you are slowly adding these levels of duty, obligation, responsibility. Right? You're slowly creating these contractual terms in these relationships. Every day, your lover is passing, either literally or figuratively passing you a new contract and having you sign a new obligation, a new responsibility, a new duty. And next thing you know, you've got a pile of these obligations, responsibilities, and duties. Right? Big pile. It's just growing every day. Some people call this the death of 1,000 concessions. Every day you're conceding to this, you're agreeing to this, you're subjugating yourself to this, and the pile continues to grow. Engagement happens. You're required to do these certain steps in these certain orders, and if you don't do them right, they don't have any impact. They have less impact. If you propose in the wrong way, or a way that's inferior to one of your girlfriends were proposed to, it has less impact. Even if your love is more for her than the other person, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what is experienced in comparison to what is required or expected. And this continues on until the point that you reach marriage. Marriage is supposedly the height of romantic relationships. And you finally achieve the goal, which is to get married, to have a lifelong, committed, romantic relationship. But little do you know, this is the ultimate contract. See, along the way, what you didn't realize was happening was your relationship was moving from being a private relationship between two people, two strangers who are getting to know each other. And that's what we really want, right? I mean, think about this. Some of the most powerful moments in any romantic relationship are at what point? The most powerful, intoxicating moments are when? It's at that stage between when you first meet someone and you begin to get into your first contractual obligatory terms. Maybe boyfriend and girlfriend, as an example. That period between when you first meet them and that point are some of the most powerful, intoxicating experiences. It's where you can experience the height of love. And if you never experience those times, I don't know how to explain it to you. It is powerful. It is one of the most powerful moments of human experience, to experience deep, meaningful connection with someone who does not have to be with you. And this time is the most dangerous time for any person, because your body and your mind are filled with hormones, filled with intoxicating energies that cause you to basically lose your mind and do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. Which includes entering into contractually obligatory terms with a romantic partner. So, at your most vulnerable time during this period, this is where most of your obligations begin to take root. This is like a drunk person being coerced to sign a contract, right? Imagine somebody completely obliterated drunk and somebody convinces them to sign a contract, right? It's crazy. It's insane. But this is what happens during that period. This is one of the reasons why I personally believe that marriage contracts should be and are legally defined as unenforceable contracts. And this is a real term. An unenforceable contract is a contract that has no terms of enforcement, that have no that cannot be legally imposed because of some type of exterior circumstance. For instance, you can't sign a contract to become a slave, right? We've established that that's not an acceptable contract. It's not an enforceable contract. An example is a minor can't sign contracts because minors do not have the power to be able to make those decisions, right? And this is important because this is what the marriage contract is. They're unenforceable, right? There's no way to enforce a marriage contract as far as the terms and conditions, right? You can't sign away your rights, but yet this is what we do at our most vulnerable stages in the height of romantic love. We are like drunk people signing contracts and creating obligations that will carry with us for the rest of our lives, regardless if they're right or wrong. And this all takes place step by step until the point that you get married. And what you didn't realize was happening was that your relationship was moving between two people who just like being around each other to you were slowly adding in a new third party into the relationship. And that third party is the courts. And this is the real destructive part of this entire standard narrative. Because what do we all really want? We want to be next to and around other people who just want to be around us. And we enjoy those relationships. And those relationships are and should be private. It's nobody's business what I do with a friend, as long as it's legal and, between consenting adults. That's no one's business. And it shouldn't be anyone's business. How you live your private life and how you interact privately, right? But the real destructive part about our standard narrative is that we unknowingly begin adding a third party into our relationship, and that is the courts. And the courts, or the tribe, come in two flavors. There are the legal courts, right, with legal ramifications. And then there's the court of public opinion, which is worse. Because in the legal courts, you're innocent until proven guilty. But in the court of public opinion, you're guilty until proven innocent. So, what the real sin is that happens throughout this process is as you're adding these obligations, duties, responsibilities, you're also adding in this third party into your relationship. The courts, the tribe, the community. Now the community has a say in your relationship. When you become boyfriend and girlfriend, that comes with certain community standards. When you get engaged, that comes with a whole new set of community standards. And when you get married, it comes with the ultimate set of community standards. Now, the community gets a vote in your relationship at an ever-increasing level as you progress through this standard narrative. The community has an opinion. Now, the community gets to look at you and say, are you being a good husband or are you being a bad husband? And the community gets a vote. And the community wants the vote. Why? Because the whole standard narrative is set up for control. To control you. And this is the real rub of the standard narrative, the real sin. Because you have been giving away your power, your freedom, your autonomy, and now it's not just you and this other person. Now you've got this third party, the community. And guess who the community is going to side with in most cases? Because that's what they're there for, to be a tiebreaker. In case there's a disagreement, in case there's a point of contention, the community gets to come in through the legal courts and the court of public opinion, and they get to pick a side. And guess whose side they're going to side with most of the time? It's going to be hers. This is why I say marriage is a prison and your wife is the warden. Because it's fundamentally part of our human nature that women and children are to be protected, and which is not a bad thing. But in the terms of a contractually obligatory romantic relationship, it becomes terrifying, right? Because you've given the community, the courts, the ability to vote in the relationship. That means no matter what happens, guys, it's 2 votes against 1. You hear these guys all the time, oh, I rule my house, I'm in charge, I'm the boss. No, you're not. No, you're not. You've got 3 people in the relation, 3 parties in the relationship, you, her, and the courts. And the courts are always going to side with her, so it's always going to be 2-1. So you have no power. You have no authority. Instead, you have risk, responsibility. You have responsibility, duty, and obligation. Right? And the courts are there to make sure that you fulfill your end of the bargain, or you will pay the price. Not just financially, because that's what most people think about divorce. Most people think just how bad the financial side of it is. Guys, the financial side is not even the worst thing that happens to you in divorce. It's the least worst thing that happens to you. Okay, there's a lot worse things that happen to you because if the community feels like that you have broken your sacred duties and vows. Regardless if those vows or duties were reasonable to even enter into, regardless if this was an unenforceable contract in the first place, it doesn't matter, because no one cares. because the whole point of the whole contract was control. Now, you may not have realized that, you may not have understood that, but that was the whole point. So no one feels sorry for you. The marriage is a prison. It's actually the marriage is a self-imposed prison for simps. That is the truth. That's why married guys in sitcoms are always the buffoon. They're the idiots. They're the punchline, right? Because they are. But why? Why is that the case? Well, most people don't realize why that is the case, but I want to shed some light onto you why this is the case and why marriage is so bad. And why I say marriage is only for simps. Because what is a simp? A simp is someone who gives with the expectation of return, but does not get anything in return, but continues to give. In other words, exchanging things of value for things that have no value. Well, that's what marriage is. And it's the ultimate version of that. Why? Because what is the most valuable thing you possess in your life? What's the most valuable thing you possess? Cars, boats, houses, land? No. A wise person will say one of the most valuable things you have is your time, because you can't make more of it. But an even wiser person would say the most valuable thing you have is not time, it's freedom, it's autonomy. Freedom is the most valuable thing you have. Why? Well, think about it. If I could give you a magic pill that would allow you to live for 1 billion years, but the caveat is you must live that 1 billion years in a 5x5 prison cell. Would you take that pill? Of course not, because it doesn't matter how long you live. If you're forced to live in a prison cell, it's not worth it. Being a married man is like being a genie in a bottle. Phenomenal cosmic powers, supposedly. But itty bitty living space. A married man has gone through the full gauntlet and over a period of steps given away the most valuable thing he possesses, his freedom. And he's given that away for what exactly? Some people might say he gets love, desire, and affection, but as I've already shown, you can't get those if you try to buy them. If you try to buy them, you no longer get them. So at the very best, and this is in the best case scenario, a married man gets the illusion of love, desire, and affection. So this is why only simps get married. Because this is the ultimate prison for a simp. He gives away the most valuable thing he has, his freedom, in exchange for nothing. At the very best, the illusion of love, desire, and affection. And this is the real problem with marriage. Is it doesn't solve any problems. It only creates them. It's a self-imposed prison. And yes, some people can find happiness in any circumstance. Can a prisoner become happy? Sure. Can a slave be happy? Possibly. In fact, we hear stories that there were slaves pre-abolition that actually supported slavery. Why? Because they happened to like their setup. They had a house, they had food. Yeah, they had to work a couple hours, but if they weren't slaves in their minds, because their minds have become so twisted from generations of indoctrination, in their minds it was a safer bet than to be out free in the world. And this is the best case scenario for a married man. I'm going to end with a quick story about my life. You know, I spent a lot of time in relationships. I ended up getting married. I was married for 14 years. And I remember feeling these feelings along the path. Now, the woman who I married was a wonderful person. She still is a wonderful person to this day. But there were steps along the path that I started feeling these feelings. I didn't know what they were, and it took me years after the marriage to understand what I'm sharing with you today. Because along the path, I found myself resenting her, blaming her, thinking, had I married someone else, it would have been better. Had I made better choices with my partner, it would have been better. If I would have married so-and-so, it would have been better. If I would do this, it would have been better. And this is what a lot of people go through. Most people, especially most men, never learn what I'm sharing in this video right now. They spend their whole lives and never learn it. This is why guys get married 3, 4, 5 times. Because they keep thinking in their heads, it was her that was the problem. It was her that was the reason why they were miserable. But the truth is far more nefarious. The truth is, it's not her fault. The problems with relationships are not her faults, right? The problem is us. The problem is you. The problem is me. I'm to blame for the pain and misery I experienced. No person can make you happy or fulfilled, okay? No one. There's no circumstance which that is the case. And when you put yourself into a self-imposed prison, you commit the worst sin of all. It's one thing to bring pain and to betray another person. That's one thing on itself that's just crazy. That's just almost unpardonable, to betray another person. But far worse than that is to betray yourself. And that is what happens when you participate in the standard narrative dating. You commit the worst sin of all. You betray yourself. You give away the most valuable thing you possess, your freedom and autonomy, in exchange for absolutely nothing, for an illusion. And you put all your chips on the table when you know that you have nothing in your hands and everyone else has something in theirs. There's an old saying that says, no one will love, desire, or honor you, or love, respect, or honor you more than you love, respect, and honor yourself. And if you think so little of the most valuable thing you have, your freedom and autonomy, that you're willing to give it away for absolutely nothing, what do you think other people are going to think about you? How do you think other people will be able to love, respect, and honor you if you don't even love, respect, and honor yourself? This is the real problems with the standard narrative of romantic relationships. Other animals don't do this. Other animals don't marry. Other animals don't date. They mate. And with that, I'm going to sign off. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. Hope you enjoy the video. Take care of yourselves.